I hadn't noticed Hitman Freelancer, and I certainly would still not have if IO Interactive hadn't sent it to me. The truth is that there is little interest in talking about DLCs for games, especially when they are free, and I would probably have done the same thing if I hadn't considered two situations. First, the excellent gesture made by IO Interactive after going solo, having joined together the last Hitman trilogy in just one game, Hitman World of Assassination, making the game an excellent proposition for the player. And secondly, because Hitman Freelancer is a very funny twist on the Hitman formula. Since you are here, why don't you leave a like, a comment, or even better, a sub for more content just like this one. It's a massive help. Thank you a lot. I admit that I had to spend some time reading the press release for this just to try to understand if Hitman Freelancer was a separate game or if it was a DLC. I hadn't even heard about it, which is strange for a game of this size. Nor did much appear online to explain what it was, but then I realized that in this gaming world everything revolves around clicks, and these small opinion videos already generate few for a brand new game, so it will generate even fewer for a free DLC for a game that is over 1 year old by now. This is another of the many peculiarities of gaming portals and YouTube channels that I find hard to understand, since apart from a handful of editors and YouTubers, we all do this because we like to do it, not because we receive any compensation. Well, except for an abnormal amount of games, and even in that case, that is not always true. It is just our need to help someone who might eventually have some doubts about the game. So, what help can be given in this case if the player already has the game and the DLC comes with it? No questions asked. Well, first, because they might not have noticed it, like me, and second, because it's really worth playing. Hitman Freelancer, at heart, introduces a roguelike component to Hitman. You have to admit, it makes sense. On the surface, it may seem that not much has changed, but as we play, we realize that much more is at stake, because one mistake sends us back to the beginning of 18 missions with very little to offer us for our time at that point. During the game, we have successive blocks of 3 missions that we have to play in order to complete this, let's call it, story. In the first 2 missions of each block, we have to eliminate intermediate leaders of cartels for, in the last one, to use the collected information to, based on physical descriptions, identify and eliminate their leader. It looks like more Hitman, but apart from Agent 47, Diana Burnwood, another mainstay of the franchise, and the iconic disguises, everything in the game tastes very differently. There is a feeling of tension that is practically permanent since the option to restart the mission disappears from our menu. Each mistake really hurts, and not even the loss in itself represents any gain like other roguelites, since we immediately lose a block of missions, and given that each scenario is procedurally generated, memorizing patterns becomes useless in a future attempt at the same mission. And what do we get when we do everything right? Well, the game has a central hub, a sort of a classy Batman cave. As we complete missions, we'll earn items and weapons that will help us in future missions, but always in a game of risk and reward, since if we were not successful, we lose all of the items we have and half of the currency. Not being successful may not mean that we are caught, it can also mean that we have not caught our target. In those cases, we manage to return to our hiding place, and then the logic says that we should keep all the items we had, but we don't. I even thought it was some sort of bug I had found in the first time it happened, arriving at the hideout and items I had stored there have disappeared, but apparently that's how it works and I don't agree with that. Maybe a little bit to encourage us to experiment and just not hoard all the items together without using them. I can't explain the reason and I do not agree with it no matter, but this just adds more weight to the importance of each mission. As usual, the reward system is very much linked to how we complete the mission and not to the fact that we complete it. Generally speaking, the more creative we are at catching our target, the more rewarded we are. But even here the risk is gigantic, since if we stir the waters too much in one mission, we raise suspicions in the following ones, making them unnecessarily more difficult than they would normally. Each successfully completed quest block makes the next one more difficult. I never made it past the third one, but I'm a long way from being an expert in this type of games. At a certain point I just feel like shooting in all directions, especially since the game is not without its problems. From the top of my head I remember one that really pissed me off. In one of the missions to eliminate the leader of one of the cartels, there were 4 suspects that I would have to discard based on their physical description. When I started, I saw these 4 suspects, and soon the first one seemed to me the right one. But since I had not seen the others, I looked for them to rule them out. At a certain point, and without realizing it, one of them disappears. It was just gone. I knew it existed because I had already seen it and because the mission said to me explicitly that there were 4 of them and none of the ones left was exactly matched to the description. When I got angry, I made some mistake and one of the elements noticed me and ran away. Was this the person I should have eliminated? Well, apparently yes, since I lost the mission, but it didn't match the description. Anyway, that's a question I still have now and I do not know how to answer it. Anyhow, Hitman Freelancer is like playing dice. It's the same data, it's the same game, but the result turns out to be different, although we can see that it's the same game. Okay, I know this description is confusing, but that's how it is. And considering that this DLC is free, it deserves the action of putting the disc back in the console to play some missions. See you next time, guys. Bye!